We're here to build your dream team, building futures, that's our theme. Key Tech Talks will show the way, with Key Global, spread your wings.
Welcome, bienvenue, welcome to another Key Tech Talks starring Lauren Halket, who founded Key Global Recruitment. Today's special guest is Joe Major, founder of Diversity in Recruitment, and we're here to talk about topics related to that. So without further ado, Lauren, please take it away.
Thank you very much, Gareth. And yeah, welcome to the show, Joe.
Thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you. But actually, we have recorded before and we've met some time ago. So it's lovely to see, your face back in my space.
Yeah, we did. I mean, I think it was why it was about. I'd not been running the business a while. I think I was still in my first year, I think. And I think it was one of the first recordings that you'd done.
Yeah, it was.
You were ace.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Well, I don't know. Looking back, I wouldn't probably say it, but you just further, develop and gain more confidence and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was a nervous point of the podcast and the recording. But you just have to get out there, don't you, Joe, and hope for the best.
You do. And you know what? I don't think there is there isn't a hack to whether it's public speaking, whether it's podcast. It's just practice, say yes to everything, have as many conversations, and then you stop being nervous. Your brain doesn't have reaction, and that's what I found. I really struggled at first, but then I was like, look, I got to do it, so just get on with it.
Yeah, exactly. And like you just said, then it's opportunity, isn't it? You've got to give yourself as much opportunity and throw yourself at the deep end as much as you possibly can, because that's how success is made, isn't it? Really,
yeah. You don't get very far if you don't get out your comfort zone, right? And we can't be brilliant at everything, but I think we can become really good at stuff if we practice and feel a bit uncomfortable now and again. It's a sign, isn't it, that it's something that's stretching us, and I think we all need a little bit of stretch. We can't be, high performing in
too comfy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. There was something on over the weekend, actually. There was something, I think it's on the radio, or it was on one of the business podcasts that I watch. And it was saying, the more that you put yourself in that uncomfy situation and, you do things that you don't want to do, that's how you get successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just get braver. And those nerves turn to butterflies, and and it becomes exciting to do. I think because you prove to yourself, and you prove to your own brain that everything you say about yourself simply isn't true, because you do it and it's all right and you're fine. And all of that box stuff in your head where you're like, I'm not good enough, I don't know enough, I'm not expert enough, people are going to think I'm rubbish. They're just the lies that we tell ourselves, right? It's not true. And I think eventually our subconscious actually stops believing that stuff, and it's like, you got this, it's fine. What's the worst that can happen? You don't might start barking.
Oh, Joe, I love it. I absolutely love it. Great minds think alike. So I just wanted to bring you onto the show. One, because you're absolutely epic and awesome and a legend in your own space. You absolutely are.
Epic, awesome legend. I'm loving Monday so far.
Well, like you say, I have known you for a long time, Joe, so I have seen your journey and it is inspirational. So
thank you.
Yeah, keep acing it. But obviously I know that you've worked in the tech industry. I am, I'm a specialist, a talent acquisition specialist within the tech space. And diversity and inclusion is huge. It's massive. In recruitment, it really is about, giving people the space, giving people the voice, making sure that people are appreciated, and you know, so that they can thrive, they can be the best version, you know, of them. And I am totally obsessed with not just hiring. You know, what I do is, you know, retain recruitment, it's consultancy, it's managed service. And for me, it's all about, you know, long term. It's all about, you know, being consultative. And also it's about being detailed. And also, it's not just hiring, you know, there's retention and recruitment. And for me, it's about, you know, really aligning to be successful within this space is, you know, not just putting bums on seats, not just putting anybody in any role in any organization. For me, it's really, I'm really, really passionate about putting the right people in the right organization and aligning them with, you know, the behaviors in the organization, the culture, so that they become a long-term employee and they, you know, they get all the support they need. And but first and foremost, what is important is that, you know, they've got a career progression that is achievable, realistic, etc., etc. And, you know, they've got all of the, you know, the support in place. And being neurodiverse, obviously, you know, it's a hard gig sometimes to have a voice, to be heard, etc. And I think, you know, neurodiversity in tech is huge, obviously.
It's huge everywhere. It's 25 to 30% of the working population, right?
Yeah,
that's massive.
Yeah,
that's not just a couple of people in your team. That's over a third of your organization, right?
Yeah.
And I think what you were saying is, and I don't think it's something that gets spoken about enough in recruitment, is that the recruiters, whether you're agency or whether you're internal, your focus should be helping your stakeholders build high-performing teams, right? And I don't think we talk about it enough, you know, especially with like contingent transactional stuff. It's like you say, it can be a bum on a seat. But actually, if we want to be the consultant in recruitment consultant, where we are, you know, we want to build those long-term relationships with our clients, especially tech firms who are usually on a build out. The focus needs to be not a bum on a seat. It needs to be a high performing team with multiple component parts, right? We know that the more diversity that we bring, the more high performing the team is. And part of that is to work in partnership with the client, and for us, I guess, to understand that all those other things that you talked about, the culture and all those other moving parts that need to be in place for people to perform well, that's part of our job, to really get under the skin of that, isn't it, with our clients, and really understand, you know, when we put people who are different from one another, who are diverse, is everything in place within that organization that levels the playing field for everybody to be successful? Or is it that only a certain profile does really well within that organization? And that's always, I think, whenever we are given the instruction of building out diversity, we always need to make sure, right, is the environment going to be right for everybody? Is that client, if we're talking about neurodiversity, are they set up to make sure that a whole range of different brain types and personalities have access to resources that enable them to be successful in their own right? That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, you know, the reason why I came out and, you know, founded Key Global and went on my own, basically.
Yeah.
You know, because to be honest, I was frustrated. You know, I was frustrated being where I was, you know, kind of working for somebody, because, you know, I felt almost like, you know, I felt like I was in the call center. I honestly did. I felt it was so, you know, transactional, and it wasn't detailed enough. And obviously, being neurospicy, being neurodiverse, you know, I'm a very detailed person. I like detail, and you know, when I wanted to go out there, you know, the driving force behind it and the motivation in founding Key Global Recruitment was, you know, to be that retainer, to be that, you know, consultative partner, you know, with a HR twist, because I do HR as well. And to, you know, not just hire, but make it compliant, you know, make it, make it detailed, and in all honesty, really do give a shit about the clients that I'm working with. Get under the skin of everything, get under the skin of the organization, the people, the culture, and only then, once we've built that detail with the clients, is then when we go out and look at, talent.
Yeah. And I think that's the best.
Mhm.
It's the right process. I always talk about like an equity first, hiring strategy.
Yeah.
So this is
Mhm.
not a lot of the time when I work with organizations, they know that to become more successful, to become more aligned with the communities that they serve, they need to be more representative. But often there's a rush for diversity. It's like, can you help us hire in diversity? Instead of actually, first of all, looking at diversity that already exists within the organization beyond race, ethnicity, and gender, which is sometimes the default place that we go to and then give ourselves the label of being undiverse, when actually there's a whole melting pot of different backgrounds, identity markers, and circumstances that already make your workforce diverse.
Mhm.
And then we have to start with our recruitment processes. First of all, we've got to start with our working conditions. We've got to start with
Absolutely.
with the policies that protect people, the behavior
Mhm.
that makes everybody feel included, the benefits that helps everybody to achieve, and the working environment, where people are treated fairly and and ethically, and and as equals. And all of that good stuff helps us to build a really attractive employee value proposition,
Mhm.
which which, as you will know, that's critical for us to, especially when we're hiring in people who are not already within that organization.
Mm.
More and more people are hyper aware. Like, we're talking about big percentages here, 60 to 70% of candidates are becoming more hyper aware of how important the culture of an organization and the inclusion and the diversity and the level playing field, how that could influence their career trajectory. And more people are doing the research around that and asking the questions. So it's our role as recruiters, isn't it, to make sure that that stuff's in place, but also the basics, that the recruitment process itself is not the reason why people can't get into the organization. To actually be able to look at the end-to-end hiring process and to be able to use our recruitment and talent attraction expertise and go, that's a blocker, that's a blocker, that's a
Yeah.
deselection point, that's a deselection point. This is a challenge for accessibility. This is not going to be attractive to that community. And then to be able to go in and provide our advisory service and consultation and get that working properly. Because ultimately you can have all the good intentions in the world to bring in diversity into your business, but if you've got a really clunky, archaic, old-fashioned traditional recruitment process, you might attract people, but then getting them through, a completely different story. Have you found that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We've worked with, sometimes we'll pull away from what seems, a really good business, Joe, as the recruitment process, like you say, it's clunky, it's messy, it isn't modern, or, it can be, too lengthy. I've found that, a lot. It's the process is way too long, so you're just going to lose really good talent.
Can I ask you a question? What, in your opinion, and and I'm wondering whether or not we share the same perspective on this, especially when it comes to
Yeah.
tech firms, right? Especially those
Yeah.
ones that are going through that growth process and, big build outs. The multiple processes, what is always at the root of these multiple processes coming in again and coming in again and coming in again, in your view?
So being neurodiverse, if you can just explain that. Sorry.
So, so we start off, I found sometimes we start off with a very simple process. We might have a first stage or a second stage, and then
Yeah.
we bring candidates back in again to meet Bob. We bring candidates back in again to meet Julie. We bring candidates
Oh
back
no,
in
it's
again.
terrible.
Yeah, and I
awful.
found that this seems to be a pattern, especially in tech
Yeah,
companies. I was wondering,
absolutely.
what was your perspective, and also, like, what's at the bottom of it? Why is it a thing? It's almost like a beauty parade before somebody's got a job.
Yeah, yeah. I think it is a bit like that, Joe. To be honest, I think you could have explained. You couldn't have explained that any better. And I absolutely agree. And I see that a hell of a lot. And ultimately, it's that too lengthy process.
Why
And
are
then
they
before
doing
you know
it?
it,
Why are they,
you've lost the client.
Why do they have to bring people back in? Why do they have to meet everybody in the entire business before anyone can make?
Yeah. It's a good question. I'd love to know myself, if you can actually get to, when you get to meet every single one of these decision makers. But for us, sometimes as a managed service or, an extension to their internal teams, it's hard, it's hard to get everybody together all the time sometimes and get that feedback. And it's hard then to, to better the process, because then they kind of do that with us where, oh, you've got to come back in, to meet Jenny, and you've got to come back in to meet Bobby, and you're just like, hold on a minute, there's 10 meetings, there's 10 meetings there. Why have we had to meet 10 individual people, all together, one room, or even, what I like to do, because I just think it's, I think the home working in person, I still love the in-person, meetings. I still think it's good. Yes, we live in a modern world. Yes, we live with technology, but we're all human and we all need that interaction. We all need that face to face sometimes. And what I quite like, with clients sometimes is actually, going there and meeting several different decision makers. All kind of in one place. But going back to it, Joe, it's frustrating. I see it a lot.
Is it a culture thing? Do you think there's an over focus on getting people that fit? Yeah. Likability almost.
Yeah, I think there's an over focus, and I think there's a bit of anxiousness there.
Yeah.
I think there is a bit of, are we sure what we're doing here? Is this right? Okay, let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's reconfirm. Let's reconfirm our decisions. But what you don't realise what you're doing there is you're then asking the candidate to reconfirm, and they then become deteriorated by the process because it becomes too lengthy and too long. So then they've switched off then.
Yeah, that fatigue sets in, doesn't it?
Yeah, that fatigue sets in. Absolutely.
And also, not everybody is in a position where they can attend 6 interviews. There's all kinds of things.
Especially neurodiverse people like myself. There is absolutely no way. And like you said, Joe, 3% of any workforce, especially in tech, is neurodiverse. So these people have to have things. They have to simplify things. You have to take the chaos out of it for them to be able to follow the process.
I think you said something really interesting that around this lack of confidence in their decision making, and I often find
absolutely
there's a lack of confidence in tech firms, especially if they're going through, they've had that funding and they're going through that growth spur, and everything's just worked really well with this bunch of founders who all came from the same place, who have all worked with each other before, who all kind of like through their own network have managed to get to 10 or maybe 20 or maybe 30. And then the certain rounds of funding have come in and they're like, right, we've got to get to 100. And there's this lack of confidence. There's a couple of things that a lot of people have never been taught to interview properly. They don't understand the intricacies of skills-based hiring. They can't articulate their own culture. People often, I think, default to this feeling of social fit, which is that likability, getting on, having the same interests, hanging out, all of this stuff that really is secondary to running a successful business. They don't think about culture in terms of leadership style, management vibe, behavioral norms, like value alignment. And if you can't articulate those 4 critical parts of your business, it's very difficult to then assess whether or not a candidate aligns with those. And it's critical to align with those things, isn't it? So I think that it's this blurred line between likability. You know, can you imagine? So I've worked with some tech firms where it's almost like the entire business has to sign off whether or not they like another human being before that person comes in. And it's so... And this brings in all this unconscious bias, you know, all the multiple biases about how we are hardwired to like people who look like us, sound like us, have a similar background, have the same education, are basically like people that we'd become friends with. And we don't build a high-performing business. If we hear all the founder stories of tech businesses, there's always a restart button where they hired loads of people and then realized that all those people, mates, were not strong enough from a skills perspective to take the business up here. So then they had to work backwards and really figure out like who they were without this friendship group. And I think like that is where I think you come in, and your expertise is building client confidence and interview process. Trust me, you can do this in 2 stages, and I will work with you.
Yeah.
So by the end of those 2 stages, it's unquestionable whether or not this person's right for your business. And hey, we're not going to be focusing on where they go on holiday or what they do on a weekend, right?
Exactly.
Or whether or not we down a few IPAs.
Shots of Jaeger bomb. Shots of Jaeger bomb, yeah. And everything else that goes with it, Joe. But yeah, no, you know, exactly. It's about, you know, it's about multi-layers of assessment. Yeah. You know, assessing you as a client, you know, assessing your culture, your people, your current, like I say, your current diversity, because, you know, what have you got there that we can work with, or what's there that we need to remove? Do we need a clean slate, or have we got something that we can work with there? 100%. So that's what we have to do. We diagnose, we take diagnostics, you know, we really try to understand the setup, the business, the people, the processes, the current recruitment process. And then only when we do that is then when we would, you know, try to align, you know, the talent. And that's what I am totally infatuated by, totally neurodiverse, obsessed by, crazy by. So if there is anybody out there, you know, that is looking for that, you know, neurospicy, you know, specialist recruiter that is obsessed with not just putting bums on seats, that's obsessed with, you know, the D&I, you know, kind of a HR service as well as recruitment, and just being, you know, that detailed partner, then, you know, just kind of let us know, because
I think you're in the right space at the right time with what you're doing. 100%. A couple of reasons. Neurodiversity, right? More and more people in adulthood, 40s, 50s, because their kids are being diagnosed, and then they're realizing that they might be, So, you know, I think we've got some real gaps in the data. You know,
absolutely,
on paper,
we have.
We're like, what, 20%, but every other person in my peer group has been through a diagnosis, and ADHD and autism without a doubt. I've had a friend who's just found out that, you know, dyslexic after. Honestly, how that person is navigated, you know. But I don't think so. I think there's, you know, I would say 2030, I reckon we're going to be looking between, you know, because we're going to have there's so much more awareness, and I'm even seeing organizations as part of their benefits offering diagnosis, you know, assessments, diagnosis, really clinical. Offering, it's part of a benefit, offering assessments. What an amazing way to provide equity within your business.
I know.
Assessing your people and then being prepared to make
that is incredible. Yeah, high five to anybody doing that out there. That is absolutely incredible.
Whole movement and awareness and diagnosis, assessment of neurodiversity. We've also got the changes in laws, right? And from I don't know what date it is. Next year, is it next year or later this year? You know that it is so critical that we hire the right people. It's always been critical. That we hire the right
absolutely
people.
It is.
I honestly believe that the what's it called, the when you work for 6 months and then you get assessed as to whether or not you stay in perm. What's the word? It's gone out my head. Where we have a rebate period,
kind of temp. So you temp to perm.
Yeah, no, but you know what? Where you start in an organisation and you've got like 3 months to prove yourself. What
probation period?
Probation, right? Gosh, it's Monday, right?
We got it, Joe. We got it.
So I think I think probation periods have offered a little bit of a parachute for lazy hiring, right? They've almost like backed up gut instincts. It's just in my gut that they're going to be good. It's always been that probation period.
No, assess.
Yeah. And that's so damaging for people. So damaging.
Yeah.
The people going into the job, but also the team members and the organization. Nightmare situation. Can you imagine hiring people and thinking you've got that as a get out clause? But that's going to be taken away because of the workers' rights, changes in workers' rights laws. So it's no longer going to be like it as transactional as it has been under 2 years to get rid of somebody. So I honestly believe that compliance in recruitment will have never been so important.
Yeah.
And you're in this space, Lauren. That is so. Gareth, sorry, am I rambling, Gareth?
No, not at all. I'm neurodiverse as well, and I've faced all of this. I was a Cisco engineer for 21 years, so I was on contract all the time. I was constantly facing this sort of stuff. Could you ask another question, Lauren, and then I can start?
Yeah, I was going to say, Joe, I've got 2 or 3 questions for you, but can you just give me, just one answer really, so I can move through it, if that's okay. So, I say that, and they might seem like you might want to go on, but just try and draw it back if you can. Right. Okay. So, the first one, what are some things that people do wrong when they're trying to hire, when they are trying to hire in a fairer way?
Number one thing for me is they don't get educated. They don't understand what good hiring looks like. Right? They try to they try to hire themselves out of their diversity challenges, and they don't understand the fundamentals of skills-based hiring. They might do the simple tick boxy stuff like put the advert through a gender decoder or provide some crappy questions ahead of an interview, or put a little statement saying, if you want any adjustments, ask us. We know that those things on their own independently don't really make a massive difference. There's got to be a whole ecosystem. And I think it's like understanding there's not just 1 or 2 things, it's a whole process. Does that resonate? Yeah.
Absolutely. 100% it does. And thank you so much, Joe. I've got two other, so we'll be as quick as we can. What's something people believe about hiring all kinds of different people that just isn't true?
There is this really unusual notion that somehow diversity, inclusion in recruitment is about hiring people that are not skilled and hiring people because they tick a box. and that and that goes against like the Equality Act. It goes against the very ethics and essence of diversity and inclusion. What we're not here to do is to lower the bar. We're just here to widen the gate and get more people who have the right skills and qualifications. Nobody ever wants to get a job because of their marginalized identity. Just saying.
I like it. Yeah, just hashtag
truth bombs.
Just
Joe
saying.
Truth bombs.
Yeah. Okay, so the final one, Joe, is how can companies make sure that they're picking different kinds of people for jobs for the right reasons, not just to look good?
If it feels like they're ticking a box, then they are ticking a box. I think this is about making sure that we are first and foremost looking at our hiring processes and our talent attraction strategy and making them better, and understanding that just because we do one thing over here and one thing over there isn't going to make a long-term difference to the diversity and difference of our talent pools. It's about approaching this as a long-term strategy and not setting ourselves unethical targets. We've got to improve the performance of our recruiters and hiring managers, evolve our recruitment processes to be fit for 2030, right, which is around the corner. And if we're just starting now on being fit for 2025, we're going to be out of date next year. And we just need to really look at our employee value proposition and everything that wraps itself around that, and expect results in, expect results in 12 months, in 2 years, in 3 years, and just stop obsessing over what we think we can see, ticking boxes, basically, over focusing on women, over focusing on people of color, and not taking that intersectional approach and seeing people as a whole range of different identity markers who face multiple barriers.
Wow. On that bombshell. Thank you so much, Joe Major. Interesting. Sitting on the sidelines, nodding away in the background. Love some of the topics you're talking about. I think you guys potentially have a little bit of a marriage made in heaven. Who can tell? Who can tell? And maybe that should be taken outside of this. But thank you so much, Joe Major, founder of Diversity in Recruitment. If you want to get hold of Joe, because you can understand how passionate she is about these topics and how much she can bring to your organization, please just scan the QR code I've just put up top right there, and that will take you straight to her LinkedIn profile, and just send out an initial connection request and just say, obviously you've seen her here and you want to talk more about those topics. I'm sure she'll be only too delighted to help you. The other thing I'm going to do is quickly talk about Key Global. That's Lauren's baby, Lauren's child, as it were. It's a successful organization that will help organizations do better at finding the right key tech people, neurodiverse or not, to fit in those roles so they stay there. It's about retention after all. And if you go to the QR code that's on the bottom right, that will take you straight through to a point where you can start that initial process with Lauren. It just remains me for me to say thank you, Lauren, very much for putting this together. And thank you, Joe, for taking time out today. And to all of you out there, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and please, please look after that mental health. Until next time, bye-bye now.
We're here to build your dream team, building futures, that's our theme.